certainly with an independent doctor, right, if he had this relationship and he didn't want a nurse doing something, and that if that nurse just refused to comply with the doctor's request, then the doctor could just end the collaborative practice and find somebody else who would be more willing to
now you're headed down the right path, because I agree with you. If this law is passed, you saw the scope of practice and the things that are allowed. If you did have an individual that's in a collaborative practice and you felt that they weren't up to speed as where they need to be, it's in the law that this is their scope of practice. If diagnosing was an issue in the physician's mind, but yet it was still in law that they could diagnose, where does that fall?
Well, it's a law that they can diagnose, sure, but it's not a law that the doctor has to stay in the agreement with the nurse. So at any point, the doctor could end that relationship.
I would think so, but I mean the point I'm making is that if it's already in law that they can attest to these different diagnoses and different things, which probably the majority of them can, but it ties the physician's hands when the APRN is not reportable to the physician as it says on page 1.
Well, it ties his or her hands, but he or she could of course still let go of the nurse, right?
Yes.
Except for in the situation you mentioned, but then on that, I guess it's less clear to me. But anyway, I appreciate the information.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, we will now hear testimony in favor of House Bill 1491. And I want to remind everyone that I'm trying to end this hearing by 12:45 to give you an idea, because we do have 2 other bills that we will be hearing after this.
Thank you, Chairman Burleson and other representatives. I think I know you all by first name, which may be a bad sign. And I think many of you were born after my graduation from my diploma program in 1975. Went back and got my bachelor's a bit later. That took some time too. In Hannibal Grange, went to University of Missouri St. Clair, got my master's degree in nursing administration and nursing. Went back and got my postgraduate work as a family nurse practitioner. Then got my doctorate at the University of Missouri in Kansas City, and I'm honored to say they named me their alumni of the year, and that means a lot to me. I speak to you with street cred of 16 years, driving an hour and a half a day to take care of 40 to 50 underserved patients in Pike County. When I realized my physicians were entering retirement age, I knew my patients would not have access to care with the current scenario. But I think what's going on here is a very simple bill is being spun, and I appreciate Representative Swan trying to make it quite clear. This bill does not expand our scope of practice. What it does is it clarifies where and what we're responsible for. Furthermore, it creates a license that allows us to be disciplined at a higher standard. Do you have any other group come in and ask them to that? Where's you're doing that? You ask us to collaborate, and we do every day. Do I truly believe that teams should be statute, healthcare teams? Do I think collaboration should be in statute? You know, these things develop naturally. But when you ask the Board of Nursing, which is the least of the 2 boards, to collaborate with the Board of Healing Arts, it becomes very difficult. And I think you've seen that in the inability to promulgate rules that would take Missouri out of being rated dead last in the United States. So nurse practitioners have the worst scope of practice in the entire United States. And again, this bill is not addressing that. So their fears are unfounded. Nurse practitioners could leave the state, and a study done by Perry shows they're leaving restricted states and going to less restricted states. You guys have a big problem with primary care provider shortages. You don't need to have APRNs in your state. So, there's a lot of points I could clarify, but I'm looking at Chairman Burleson, and I think he'd like me to stop. I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. I wish I could figure out what that stop face is. Are there any questions for this witness?
I'll be glad to share that with you afterwards.
Yeah, we got it on tape.
Okay. Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. We will now hear testimony against House Bill 1491. may be the last one. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify against? Quick, okay. After this, we will have a lightning round of testimony.
Mr. Chairman, many members of Max Strait, I'm representing Missouri Academy Family Physicians, and I will be quick. Most everything I wanted to say has been pointed out, but I would say that I think you can see today that there are a lot of questions about this bill. Again, we are family physicians who work a lot with nurse practitioners, probably more than any other group, and we do value the team relationship. And in fact, most of the states now are going to a patient-centered medical home, which really involves that team approach. We are concerned about putting the scope in the bill. What if you have a physician that, and I've been talking to a lot of my physicians, they feel very good about most of the nurse practitioners they have. They feel like they're able to define in that collaborative what works well within their relationship. But I have been told that they have some that feel like right now maybe they're fairly new into the practice that really would not be able to perform some of these things. So we think that should be in the collaborative. One of the things that I wanted to mention, I think Dr. Frederick brought it up, that currently, and I don't really know the answer to this, I'd be happy to work with the sponsor. There's a list of APRN certifications now that's on the Board of Nursing website. And I think his question was, creating the license, I think is okay, and I think that would be good because it would give us a better idea of how many there are, where they are, what type of practice they're in. But I think I'm concerned that would you have a nurse practitioner that is trained in one area, then moving over and working in a different area? And I'm not sure that this really answers that question.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Appreciate now here. Let's do for and against. Let's quickly as we go. We'll have testimony for.
Mr. Chairman, in the lightning round, I'm Chris Lisi with CVS Caremark. We'd like to go on record in support of this fine bill. Missouri is absolutely one of the most restrictive states. We have the most barriers for nurses, and I'd like to just go on record for that. And I can elaborate, but I know.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone against?
I'm in the lightning and non-seating round.
Okay.
Right on behalf of Missouri College of Emergency Physicians and also Washington University School of Medicine.
Can't hear you.
In opposition to the bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone else in favor? Quickly.
I'm Joanne Franklin. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I'd like to say that many other disciplines do have scopes of practice within statute, like physical therapists, respiratory therapists, and PAs are physician assistants, and so that's not unusual. We also carry our own malpractice, which I don't think has been discussed, and we also have to be certified by a national board. So we have to sit for national exams in order to practice, so we're not just practicing without meeting certain standards that are national standards. And the other thing is that the Board of Nursing also plays a part in safety for patients, and by putting us under the Board of Nursing, all it does is give them the ability to discipline nurses if that need be. And the scope of practice that's written on these pages is basically the baseline of what everyone does. And the collaborative agreement is in place, and you have to have a collaborative agreement in order to practice in Missouri.
Thank you for your testimony.
And the Pearson report, which is a national report, Representative Franklin, does show that Missouri has an F for nurse practitioners' ability to practice.
Thank you. Testimony against. Did I hear testimony against? Well, now I feel bad for cutting her off. Okay, is there anyone? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Mars, Missouri Hospital Association. We are in favor of the legislation. Obviously, we have to work with physicians and APNs. Our main focus is on access, increasing access, and that's why we're in support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is this for or against?
For.
Okay. Thank you. Very quickly.
Kathy Harness, lobbyist for St. Luke's Health System in Kansas City on the western side of the state. we are in support of this legislation.
Thank you.
And kind of echo BJC's comment.
Thank you. Anyone against? Okay, quickly, board.
Really, just informational purposes, I'm Jill Sleeper-Amos with the Missouri Nurses Association, CEO. We are currently under the Board of Nursing. That is not changing. We are licensed. We are under the Board of Nursing. I know there's been a couple of comments made, maybe just putting us under the Board of Nursing, but we are already under the Board of Nursing.
Thank you. All right, this ends the hearing on House Bill 1491. Thank you for your patience. We'll now hear bills about fireworks. If anyone wants to. Members of the committee, we are not done. Believe it or not, there are other occupations and professions outside of these. All right, Representative. We are now ready to hear the bill.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Representative Jay Otten from the 43rd District. Got a simple bill here. Basically, I think it's non-controversial too, I hope it is. Basically what it amounts to is, I've got a former constituent who has the Missouri Pyrotechnics Association come to his farm every year, and they put on quite a fireworks show, and it's all free. And these guys and gals put together fireworks, don't sell the fireworks, but they're still required to have a license. And that license, costs them $775. And what this bill will do is reduce that down to $100. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay. Are there any questions for this bill? Representative Rhodes.
Representative, that was loud, wasn't it? So if you just want to do this on your own, it's cost you $750 to have a family fireworks show at your house.
$775 because you're considered a manufacturer.
Okay, because you're manufacturing on site there, and you're taking raw materials and putting together, put them in the tubes, and the whole nine.
My understanding of it is what some of them do is they actually go out and buy fireworks, and take them apart, and put them back together the way they want them to.
Okay. Well, to not create heat on me, and where I live in Ozark County, I've heard of that before, yeah. Once.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Peters.
Commissioner City Park, Mr. Chair.
C.
Thank you. How you doing, Representative?
Fine.
I just have a question. Are we talking about the actual assembling of the firework itself and not actually like popping it in the sky? I'm curious, I'm sorry.
I'm not following your question.
Okay, so you're saying that it's a manufacturer, right?
That's what they are now in the statute, is they're considered a manufacturer.
Okay, you're saying that your constituent is classified as a manufacturer because that individual actually manufactures or actually.
To me, a manufacturer is someone who puts something together for sale.
Right. So you're saying that that's not the case.
That's right. They don't sell these fireworks.
So they're just looking to have a good old time and pop them off.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. That leads me to another question. I know that some universities during their homecoming tend to have like a firework display. Do you know if those individuals or that classification of folks, whether it's a city or what have you, do they have to also meet the same requirement as the gentleman out in the district? You know?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what kind of requirements. I mean, other than the fact that they got, I'm sure that they had to carry pretty heavy liability insurance.
So you don't know if they have to pay that $700 dollars?
I'm sure that they did. That I don't know, because I know some of the guys with the Pyrotechnics Association do put on these shows, okay? But I think that they put on these shows with pre-manufactured fireworks.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Breaker.
To inquire, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed.
Thank you. Representative, do you know, with this permit, will there be any kind of inspection, or will there be any work involved by the state that you know of?
Not that I know of, no.
Then my question would be, why do we need to charge $100? It's just for a hobby or to set off fireworks at your own family gathering? Just curious.
My own personal opinion. This is identical language. There's also this version over in the Senate, and it's identical to the Senate. So
That's your problem.
well, but my own personal opinion is I think it should be 0, but
Well, it's like getting a burning permit, you know, in our city or whatever, you know, you gotta get a burning permit. It doesn't cost anything, but they wanna know that if you're burning, obviously, if the conditions aren't good or something like that. And it seems to me like, you know, for individual use, personal use, that, you know, you're gonna have family gatherings, it almost gets into, you know, church chili suppers and inspections again, so.
Crazy.
I know I hung up on that. Anyway, that'd be my suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
I do have a question follow up on that. But would it be significant to change the bill to allow, just make it simple that someone who wishes to, for their own individual purposes, to manufacture them on their own, for their own use, as long as they're not selling it, and just leave it at that, not have them be licensed or registered with the state?
well, I think if you look through the bill, I mean, we're actually putting hobby manufactured into statute, so that might be why we're doing the $100. But at least if we put hobby manufacturing in there, then they are protected under the law. It actually is defining a hobby manufacturer, if I remember right. Yeah, on page 2, line 11.
But it's not your intention to create a new registration. It's your intention to allow the citizens that are doing it to continue to do it.
Continue to do it at $675 less than what you're having to pay now.
Or even more or less.
Or even more or less, you're right.
All right. Further questions? Representative Cracky.
I apologize, there was another, so I might have missed part of it, and if you have to repeat it, I do apologize again. So the person is making fireworks in their home, just for they're making them there, okay? Is there any notification to like the fire department or anything that is required, at least for the safety, if they're not worried about their safety of their neighbors, or is there any notification for the neighbors to know that I'm making fireworks in my home? Is there any provision there?
Let's see.
I'm a big safety nut here.
No, really. Safety net or safety net? Let's see here, on page 4, line 6. This is the state fire marshal is authorized and directed to charge the following fees for permits. And then on line line 28, in parentheses number 2, says hobby manufacturers and fees. So the state fire marshal would be aware. The state fire marshal is the one who would collect the fee, I would assume. So they would know. And then they're also, somewhere in here it talks about when they have to, the permit shall be readily accessible at the manufacturing site on page 3, down toward the bottom, page 3, number 3. Yep.
Representative Peters. Permission required for council purposes. Chris, how many Chinese are we putting out of work with this bill? I need that. You don't have to comment. Are there any further questions? Okay. All right. Do you have anyone here to testify in favor of House Bill 6?
Not that I know of, but if they're here, they'll be.
You couldn't wait until the bill number 1776 was available.
That was 104 off, I guess.
Is there anyone here who wishes to testify against House Bill 1672? Is there anyone here who wishes to testify for informational purposes?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Randy Cole, State Fire Marshal. I want to make sure we understand that there may be some unintended consequences in relation to this language. Obviously, we're public safety. We're not talking these consumer fireworks that you buy in the stands. We're talking the commercial fireworks type that can be up to 16 inches in diameter. And we have had serious incidents with the commercial fireworks in some of these shoots that are even operated by licensed pyrotechnicians. So obviously we have some concern. We also have some concern in relation to the information that's provided dealing with the public taking fireworks apart, even the consumer fireworks. We've had incidents in the state where kids have been taking consumer fireworks apart, and they have exploded, and we've had deaths in relation to those explosions. So just in relation to the difference between the manufacturer, right now current law requires anyone that's manufacturing fireworks to have a manufacturer's license. We have 3 or 4 of those manufacturers in the state of Missouri, and they do pay a $775 fee. We also have a licensing piece that requires individuals that are conducting commercial displays to have to go through training and meet certain criteria that's based on the National Fire Protection Association standards. And we license those individuals for $100 per year cycle. Does that help?
Thank you. Representative Davis. Proceed.
I have a couple of friends who are engineers, and they actually have gone on to further training to do this in the engineering world. And is this the same type of thing that you're talking about with the professional?
No, I think you're talking about the blasting industry and regulations.
No, these are actually people who have a special license to do, like the ones that they do in St. Louis, or the ones that's really large.
Yes, those are the individuals that I'm talking about that are actually shooting those commercial displays, and there is a requirement that they have to be a licensed pyrotechnic operator through the State Fire Marshal's office, and that requires them to pass a test to the National Fire Protection Standards.
Are most of them engineers?
I don't know that they're most of them. I don't know that.
I was just wondering, these people happen to be engineers, and they already work in that area, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Craig. Proceed.
Then under this bill, would this person manufacturing in their home, then you have to go through a safety training? It would not then?
Well, that is something that I don't know that I can answer that based on the language here. I mean, right now, if anytime that the local jurisdiction or the state fire marshal's issues a display permit for commercial display operations, we have to require an inspection because there has to be distance requirements between structures, between churches, between gasoline fueling stations, those type of issues that need to be addressed in relation to the discharge of those displays. This would potentially allow someone to manufacture these type of fireworks in a residential area in proximity to daycares that would not require any type of inspection. So, I mean, those are some concerns I think we need to kind of think about as we work through this.
I mean, I'm very concerned if that could happen to, I mean, living in, I think this is going to apply all through the state of Missouri, in a urban setting where the homes are very close to it, and as you said, even daycares and things, if they don't have to have any requirements, I mean, that's a little concerning, and also if they don't have some type of training, even if they think they, I mean, we all think we know everything about certain things, but I would at least feel a little better if they had some type of training of some sort.
I've been at the state fire marshal's office for 28 plus years now, and you know, you think about fireworks and you think of what we used to do as children, and they're not dangerous. But I can tell you, based on experience, that fireworks are nothing to take lightly, and unfortunately, they can do some damage and they can disfigure people.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
My great grandmother was killed by a Roman candle. I believe
It happens.
Representative Nichols.
To inquire the representative.
Proceed.
How prevalent is it that people manufacture fireworks in their house? Is this something that we need to put in the law? Is it 100 people in the state, or more or less?
I have no idea.
Is one of your constituents, you said, came to you with this?
One of my constituents does not do it. He hosts the State Pyrotechnic Association on his farm. And they come out twice a year and do fireworks displays.
But they don't manufacture it.
Yeah, yes, the State Pyrotechnic Association is an association of pyrotechnicians.
That's a little bit different than, say, Josh here, sitting at home Saturday night, putting together fireworks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it is. Correct.
Thank you.
Representative Fraker and then Representative Gray.
Just to kind of follow up on this same conversation, so we're not changing anything with the permit process, we're just changing the amount.
That's correct. All we're doing is putting hobby manufacturer in the statute and then allowing the hobby manufacturer to pay $100 instead of the $775.
Right. So does the hobby manufacturer have to have a pyrotechnic license?
I would assume, but I don't know this for sure. Maybe you can answer this, but I would assume that if you're a member of the Pyrotechnics Association, that you would have a pyrotechnics license.
Our position would be that if this would pass, then yes, we would want to make sure that those individuals meet certain criteria to have the training and know how to handle this product. So we would, in addition to being a hobbyist manufacturer, we would also require that individual to be a state licensed pyrotechnic operator.
So that answers really all these questions we brought up. All we're doing is reducing the fee. In other words, if there's 4 manufacturers in Missouri, official manufacturers, and it's $750 per permit, they obviously have licensed pyrotechnic people, I'm sure, on staff or whatever. We're just taking people that aren't one of those 4 big manufacturers. They're pyrotechnic people. They get together with their associations, or they manufacture in their garage for their own events, but they still have to know what they're doing. They're still licensed, and they still shoot the fireworks off or whatever. We're just reducing the amount for their permit because they're not in the business. They may be carpenters or whatever. This is just a side hobby for them. And to me, that's all we're doing here.
Let me add, if this bill passes the way it is written, I think every one of you then could be a hobbyist manufacturer and do this in your home. require you to have any type of an inspection process in place.
So we have to get, we can do that now if we don't get a permit, right?
That is true.
So if we get a permit, you're gonna look at our certification, or you're gonna say, I'm not gonna issue you a permit without the certification.
If that individual is discharging the fireworks, then yes, we would hope that they would be a licensed pyrotechnic operator. However, the facility, the residence, the shed, wherever it is located, where they're manufacturing the product, there may not be any avenue to do any type of safety inspection to make sure what type of product you're using, if it's commercial, and the distance requirements that are in place by the National Fire Protection Association.
So you're doing that now with the 4 major manufacturers for the $750 fee?
Yes.
You wouldn't do that. You're saying you wouldn't do that if we reduced it to a $100 fee for the hobby guy?
I would have to look at the language in more detail to see if that would perceive that inspection has to be done on those sides, and we will look at that.
Yeah, the way I read the language, it doesn't specify that for you. In other words, you can still, I guess, issue the criteria you want to.
And
unless
we do
I'm
have
wrong.
promulgated rule of authority in relation to that.
Exactly.
So some of these issues could be addressed by promulgated rule, but obviously we just want to make sure that we have public safety in mind, and make sure that those individuals that are doing this know the consequences, know how to handle the product, and how to discharge the product.
I think we all want that too. I think it's either a matter of this, or we just reduce the fee from $750 down to $100 on everybody, including the four major guys. But you may need that money in order to go back and periodically check on them and do whatever you have to do. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, and I might add the fees that we collect for fireworks, the fireworks regulatory side of it, all goes to firefighter training. It's no cost firefighter training for Missouri Fire Station.
How much are the fees? How much was your total?
We have various licenses and permits. We have the jobbers, the manufacturers.
I mean, what is the total? How much do you in general
collect on an annual basis?
Right.
$160,000.
Okay, all right. Representative Peters, do you have another question?
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
I have a question. Would the bill handler be open to, and this is coming from our good colleague, Cracky, position with the urban corridor in the state. Reducing the fee to $100 would make it more attainable for folks in urban communities to be able to do exactly what you're saying here, become a hobby manufacturer, if you will. Would you be open to possibly, in the rural communities, reducing it to $100 and leaving it the same for those in the urban corridors?
I don't think we could legally do that. And count well. Okay, that's good. Right. You think that you can do that. But I don't know that we can legally carve that out. And to me, I don't know that I would agree with this. So.
Representative Ron Gray.
A couple of my questions were answered by previous requirements, but I'm trying to, and I missed the very beginning of your testimony as well. In essence, when you decrease fee, does that change the title or the requirements of a hobby manufacturer?
I don't see that it changes any requirements. It just says in statute there is a hobby manufacturer in statute, and their fee will be $100 instead of the $775 that they are now being charged.
So everything will stay the same, just the fee.
Correct. Right now they're considered a manufacturer. To me, a manufacturer is someone who makes something and sells it for profit. These guys and gals are taking it, making it, and shooting it off themselves. They are not selling it.
But they can still use these fireworks if they are manufacturing or they still use them at their house, next door to your neighbor.
Yeah, but I will tell you that the guys that do this are very safe, okay? stuff that they make, you wouldn't want to shoot off in an urban area.
I was just saying, so they can do that, but is that what they can do now? Is it change, but at this point, can they do it without?
Can you do what?
Well, they said that they can manufacture and fireworks in their house, no matter how small it is in their neighborhood. Is that something they can do currently? For the new business, that's not what happens. Can they currently do it? That will change, you know, or would your witness have an answer?
Yeah, he might be able to answer that better than I can.
Current law requires that anyone manufacturing fireworks has to have a manufacturing license. So obviously, I mean, there may be people out there manufacturing that we don't know about, but, and there probably still will be people out there manufacturing even physical gases that we don't know about. So, does that help? I mean, right now, they would not be able to legally manufacture fireworks in that type of situation. Without a license, yeah.
Okay, Representative Peters for the third time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually for the marshal. I'm just curious, and you can, I believe, if you can let me know, in the city of St. Louis and in St. Louis County, it's illegal actually to have any possession of firearms, correct?
I believe that's correct. It's a local ordinance level, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has any questions? Seeing none, anyone else who wishes to testify for informational purposes? Seeing none, Representative, thank you for your time. But before you go, I wanted to ask if anyone had considered adding this to the scope of practice of the APRN. Okay, we're now going to, that now ends the hearing, and we will now hear testimony on House Bill 1588.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ken Hampton. I'm honored to serve District 150, which is the central and southern part of Dunklin County, southern part of Pemiscot County, located in the southeastern portion of the state, better known as the Boot Heel. Today I bring before you House Bill number 1588, dealing with inspections for long-term care facilities. I'd like to give you a little background information, and I'll move as quick as possible on this to be able to take any questions. Prior to the start of construction or major remodeling of long-term care facilities in Missouri, architectural and engineering plans for all phases of the construction project must be submitted to and approved by the Department of Health and Senior Services. These plans include site preparation, paving, general construction, mechanical work, including plumbing, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, electrical work, and all built-in equipment, including elevators, kitchen equipment, range hoods, walk-in refrigeration, staff call systems, fire alarm systems, and cabinet works. Prior to the granting of a license for these facilities to operate, the Department of Health and Senior Services and the State Fire Marshal must inspect and approve that the facility was constructed in accordance with the approved plans and that it meets or exceeds the designated building code adopted by the state. Currently, under Chapter 198.018, cities, counties, and other political subdivisions of the state may require plan review, permits, and inspections of long-term care facilities to ensure compliance with local ordinances of food service or fire safety. This provision often results in duplicate building plan reviews and multiple inspections for the building and equipment, new construction, and remodeling of long-term care facilities at considerable cost and delays. What we're asking for is any facility defined in subdivision 6, 14, 22, or 23 of section 198.006 that is licensed by the state of Missouri pursuant to the provisions of section 198.015 may be inspected, licensed, certified, or registered by any other political subdivision of the state of Missouri, whether or not it has taxing power, provided, however, that nothing in this subsection shall prohibit a county or city otherwise empowered under law to inspect such facility for compliance with local drainage, wastewater, utilities, subdivision, and zoning ordinances. And the bottom line, or the caption itself, is to ensure locals do not supersede state law. With that, I close and would be open for any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for this witness? Representative Lichtenegger.
So
You
you're,
may proceed.
I'm sorry to inquire. Usually pretty good at that. Now I forgot my question.
Representative Cracky. We can go back to you later. Proceed.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, you're trying to take local authority away under this bill, it's just what the state regulations are, is that what you're getting at? Please help me out.
That is correct. You are correct, with the exception of drainage, wastewater, utilities, subdivision, and zoning ordinances. They
Those would still, by the local, those would still be, but
yes, Representative.
which would not be the local could do? What is it the state could, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
The state would still be governed by the Department of Health and Senior Services and the state fire marshal.
That's it?
On any other thing.
On any other thing?
Yes.
And then the rest would be up to the local authorities?
Yes, ma'am.
You're telling me?
Are you ready, Representative Lichtenegger?
Yes, may I inquire?
You may proceed.
I remember my question. So this only entails nursing homes, is that correct?
Yes, long-term care facilities, nursing homes, yes.
Okay, and the reason, I mean, so you're not saying that if the city or the county has a really restrictive code, like for fire, the fire code on a building, would they still have to go by that? Or, I mean, what if their code for a building is more restrictive than the state code?
I cannot see that happening. I won't say that it won't. And there may be witnesses to testify otherwise along those lines. But normally the state fire marshal pretty well has a broad realm of things that they inspect for to ensure providing for the safety and welfare of the clientele in these facilities itself.
And this is just for long-term care and nursing home?
That is correct.
Facilities. Okay, thank you.
Representative Swearingen, did you have a question?
I think I'll wait until there's a witness.
Okay, Representative Walton Gray.
Proceed. May I ask, what would be your reasoning for that?
Sometimes there are overlaps as far as cost, and then sometimes it gets bottlenecked for duplications of the same codes itself. And local control should never supersede state law.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, would you like to bring forward your first witness in favor?
Mr. Chairman, maybe my name
Can you
is
speak
Bruce
into the
Hillis.
microphone?
My name is Bruce Hillis. Is it on now? I brought this issue to Representative Hampton. I don't want to take a lot of time during the hearing, but I'd be glad to answer any of your questions or clarify anything that you need clarifying. But basically, under Chapter 198.01018, local jurisdictions that are written into the law may inspect for issues of food and health, food and health and life safety. That's the two, fire safety. I don't know when the bill was originally drafted and when that provision was put into law, but there is currently much duplication on the inspections and plan review for the food safety of the original construction. Usually they do not come back in after the fact, after it's open and going, but there's often plan reviews by a local health department that sees in the law that they have this ability or responsibility to inspect for food safety. But the State Department of Health and Senior Services reviews and inspects all these plans, not only initially, but and to get licensed, but also every year they come in and inspect these issues. As far as fire safety and building codes, et cetera, the state has standards for that, and they review those, but sometimes they are duplicated. So there's the cost of duplication. And I think we'll have a witness also that will kind of explain this, but it's not just the permitting and the plan review process. Often these inspections are called for on different days. You have to bring in staff and subs to go through the fire safety hood performance on the range hood or the sprinkler system. So it is duplication, and that's all we're eliminating here is duplicate cost, expense, and those requirements. Not eliminating any process to stop any kind of inspections by the state.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you for your time. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify in favor?
I'm Alan Lynch. I'm a general contractor, built several nursing homes in the state, and last fall my wife and I purchased a residential facility and I renovated it into an assisted living facility. During that process, especially at the end, I had the local health department come out and do an inspection, passed. Local building inspectors come out and pass. Local fire department from Columbia, Missouri come out, pass my building. I then had the health and senior services come out, found one sprinkler head that was not on the plans that they had approved, but said I needed to add it. So I called up my sprinkler company, who are 2.5 hours from my location. They came up, fixed that problem. I then had the state fire marshal come in, cited me on 4 different items. The big problem with that was, at the time of the year that happened, I had a wet sprinkler system installed. I needed to insulate my attic. And since it was a remodel, it was only a 412 pitch, and I put an R50 in that attic, which is about that high. Everything up there was covered by that insulation. I was able to fix everything from down below, but had I not been able to, that would have been a huge cost. But it still cost my sprinkler guy, because he's had to make another trip back up there to fix 2 items that took him 20 minutes. So we spent 5 hours of driving for 20 minutes worth of time. I want to make it very clear, I have no problems with having inspections, but I'd like them to be done once. I basically had 3 different inspections on that fire alarm system and sprinkler system. And I think that's just asking more than we need to when one person could do it. That's all.
Thank you for your testimony, Representative Swears. All right. Is there any other questions for this witness? Seeing none. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify in favor?
Mr.
Chairman and committee members, Larry Robach here on behalf of Leading Age in Missouri. We're an association of senior services providers. And I'm not a great big expert on this. I just know that it says in the good book that no man can serve two masters. And when you get into, you look at these inspections, which one, and standards, which one do you follow? I would mention that in 198.074, there's extensive state statute about what kind of fire equipment and that sort of thing we have. The department is also required to look at your fire safety, like whether it might be drills and all that kind of thing, not just the equipment, but your whole fire safety plan and so on. And it would certainly create, and of course they do the same thing with food service. So it would it creates not just cost, but you can end up with more than one standard. And which one do you go by? So anyway, we support it.
Thank you, Representative Crackey. Proceed.
I'm sorry, I didn't get what group are you with?
Leading Age in Missouri.
What is that?
It used to be the Missouri Association of Homes for the Aging, and then they got that screwball name. It's an association of long-term care providers.
You represent all the long-term?
No, not all of them, but some of them.
Well, some of them, yeah.
Right. We have our association is mostly not-for-profit, and we have kind of a full spectrum of members, from independent senior apartments to skilled nursing facilities, adult daycare. That's who we are.
Okay, thanks. I thought you represented the senior people, not the facilities itself.
No, right. I represent an association of service providers.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify in favor of 1588? Seeing none, is there anyone here who wishes to testify against House Bill 1588? Seeing none, and I appreciate your testimony. I'm here to testify for informational purposes. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, once again, Randy Cole, State Fire Marshal. Just so the committee is clear, the State Fire Marshal's role in these inspections are based upon promulgated rules and regulations that are drafted and written by the Department of Health and Senior Services. There is no state building code. 80% of the state of Missouri is not under any type of a building or fire code. We have codes that are adopted locally in your larger municipalities, metropolitan areas, that obviously do have the authority to adopt various building and fire codes. And I can tell you that those codes typically contain more criteria than what the health department promulgates rules and regulations in relation to fire safety. Fire safety is just related to fire safety. The locals have the building code issues and the fire code issues. Just to make sure you all understand the role of the state fire marshal. And there is no charge for those inspections.
Representative Swear. Proceed.
Thank you for your testimony. Someone recently said up here, I forget who said it, but local laws should never supersede state law in inspections. But yet you're telling us that 80% of the state doesn't even have a fire code. So I would say that's why we let our local municipalities have a fire code, because they know their surroundings. They know where the risks are. They know where a fire might occur in their city, more than the state would up here in Jefferson City. And so the fact that the state should supersede the local kind of shakes my boots. What do you think about that?
Well, I understand. We not only do inspections for long-term facilities, but also for daycare facilities. And all of our inspections are based upon promulgated rules and regulations that don't necessarily follow line item for line item a detailed nationally recognized code. They're based upon those nationally recognized codes, but they're not word for word to those codes. And our inspections do not waive any local requirements that they may see or that they may pass that they feel is necessary in their jurisdictions.
Thank you very much.
Representative Franker.
Mr. Chairman. Well, preschool, certified preschool, and so we deal with the same issues with all the different departments, and it is a problem. It's not something that isn't manageable, and I will say this, that the state fire marshal and the state health departments are very fair and very reasonable, but the problem is we do, being in the city limits, we do have city ordinances also. And on the building side, you have the 2012 International Building Code, and you are right, it's more stringent than your codes are, or regulations. But the problem, and I agree with the bill, and I think it's a good bill, is we need to figure out a way to coordinate. I think by the time you bring all these different entities in numerous times a year, it takes a lot of time. And as inspectors change, one retires, one moves, one quits, and they're replaced by someone else, the new inspector has a different viewpoint on things than the old one did. One may say that that paneling on the wall has to have a fire-resistant finish on it, and the next one may not. And so I do think that it would be nice if we could figure out some way to coordinate this, where when the state comes into the town, they notify maybe the city inspector and say, we're coming to Marshfield, we want to inspect preschools, could your people inspect at the same time, where you do it all at the same time, and that way everybody's on the same page, because there is a lot of that going on out there.
In a perfect world, that would be great. We conduct over 12,000 inspections annually, so logistically trying to coordinate all those inspections with the local inspector would be a challenge. Obviously, my drive for our inspectors is consistency, because I don't want one inspector going into a facility and for whatever reason missing something, and then a second inspector come in and identify something. But I've also told our inspectors that just because somebody has missed something, I don't want you to ignore it, that it has to be addressed. So I understand the concern, I understand the frustration sometimes with the providers, but my direction to our inspectors is trying to be as consistent as possible.
So this question may be for the representative. What's this bill going to do to fix this?
It is basically going to turn it over to one authority body, with the exception of drainage, wastewater, utilities, subdivision, and zoning ordinances.
And who will that body be?
It will be the Department of Health and Senior Services and the State Fire Marshal.
So the local inspectors are out on those issues. They won't be required to do anything. The state will take care of it.
That is basically the purpose of the bill, yes.
Great, I like that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 1588. So that is our last action of the day. Thank you.